Adam, we'll let you run with it.
You have the agenda, right?
Yes. First thing on the agenda. Adam.
All right. So welcome to week 8 of the VEP. Man, we're in 2 months already. Since we kicked all these sessions off.
Sure.
That's crazy. But some of the things, one of the more interesting conversations that have come up over the last couple weeks is how do we standardize our delivery process, our measurement tools? And I've always kind of kept a back seat to this idea that all MSPs are the same. Everybody's got a little different way of doing business, a little bit different way of delivering their product and things that they want to focus on. But what we found out is that it appears that there's a lot of commonality between various MSPs. And what I want to know from the community, and I want people to email me over the next week, because this is really important, this idea that there are 4 basic pillars that every MSP observes, and they focus on different areas within them. And the 4 pillars are strategy, service, risk, and infrastructure. And Bob and I have talked about these a lot. Skip and I have talked about these a lot. And a couple of my other clients and I have talked about these. And it's the trick is finding like a set of 4 that really resonates with everyone. Because if we can all agree on 4 pillars or 3 pillars or some kind of item like that, what I can do and Skip can do at Virtual C is we can come up with a standardized layout. So marketing materials, top of funnel items that you guys can all consume that will show people like, hey, our MSP differentiates from other MSPs because we observe the 4 pillars: strategy, service, risk, and infrastructure. And by doing this, we measure our success on this throughout the year. And it becomes much easier and more turnkey for you guys to adopt this stuff rather than having to come up with a custom solution across the board. Because then all you have to do is fit your service model within the 4 pillars. Maybe you are a security heavy MSP, so your risk area is going to have more questions in it. Maybe you're more service oriented. So your services are going to have more, like, do you have a lot of VoIP? Do you do a lot of consulting services? Do you do web services? Or maybe you're just a break fix MSP. Well, in that case, your infrastructure is going to be really heavy with your infrastructure services. For me at Virtual C, for Skip at Virtual C, we are strategy heavy. We do a lot of annual, quarterly, monthly, weekly sessions to determine how are you going to do things and why are you doing things. So I want to know from different people what they think, and I'd like to pick Skip's brain on this. What do you think, being a guy who's been in the MSP world for 800,000 years, how do you feel about the 4-pillar format?
I really like the strategy one that we're starting with, because, I may not be able to pin it down. Well, I can a little bit more now, but, I'm thinking back, just a few years ago, when I was full-time with MSPs, the strategy section was really the most fuzzy area of what I try to do. We knew what we were doing, our services, we were developing, kicking off security and risk elements, and then the infrastructure was just always core to me. I'm always big on that. So, along the way, we've developed a lot of tools to quantify and measure these things. The strategy is what intrigues me the most, and I want to, and has for the last several years. That's why I'm here working this out, because I see this as a really struggling area for everyone, but all these others as well. I mean, we've got to be able to quantify, measure, and manage what we're doing with our clients in some sort of process. Otherwise, everything's ad hoc. And what I've learned, ad hoc may be fun, it may be easy, but you can't manage ad hoc, you can't scale ad hoc, you can't grow ad hoc, and most importantly, you're gonna have a really hard time selling ad hoc stuff. So if you don't come up with some sort of standard here, you're hampering yourself. You're really limiting what your MSP can do, the revenue you can generate, the long-term value that you can generate in the business itself.
Actually, let's make that 80. Stop making fun of me, Skip. I can hear your thoughts. Here.
It already looks like an Atom whiteboard.
There we go. No trademark necessary.
So, you know, what happens here is now you can look at your client and you can say, hey, you're adopting everything great, but your risk and your strategy are doing kind of poor. And so you can say, of our risk stack, you're not doing any disaster recovery planning, you're not doing any MFA, you're not doing any managed antivirus. So the only thing you are doing is you have a third-party PCI audit every year. And so you can kind of show them, like, you're only scoring 20% of what you could be under our umbrella. And strategy-wise, we're only meeting annually. We really need to be meeting quarterly, and we also need to be talking through your budget with you to get you up to a better mechanic. And this is how you get to that next level. And so with a VEP program, if I have a framework to work in here, what Skip and I can now do is we can say, hey, look, let's create processes under here. So we can categorize the TSA as an infrastructure process. And now a generic question gets added to all of our questionnaires that says, are you running a technology stack audit every year? And that falls in the infrastructure category. And if they do one, it's going to help them mature their infrastructure stack score. And then we can have like a risk audit over here. You know, how are you running one of these? And service-wise, are you adopting our entire service strategy? Are you doing a annual planning session? You know, we can kick off processes. So service, you know, Office 365. You know, risk. Oh, you also need to do a DR planning, you know, process here. You know, infrastructure, we should probably be talking about best practices. And service, you know, we should really be seeing, like, are you adopting all of our managed services here? And you can choose every year in your session, like when the customer answers the questions regarding any of these, that you can now show an adoption. And when they want to increase their score, Virtual C in the VEP program, we've already developed a process for them to follow, an audit that they can complete that will help them paint a bigger picture. And this is all automatic. And so you have to do less work and you're scoring your clients more appropriately and more consistently. So that's where this comes into the VEP program. This is where I really want that feedback. Are these the right 4 categories? I don't know. I don't run an MSP. I run a virtual CIO practice. So getting back from you guys, if there's something like a red flag here, like, oh my gosh, I think that service and infrastructure should be combined. Okay, maybe that's it. And now I can do a 3-legged stool. Uh-oh, Bob, here comes the crappy stool. But you know, I can come with an illustration that you can put on your website and maybe a video scribe video that explains this to your clients. Like, what is the difference with your MSP? Your MSP observes the 3-legged stool of service, risk, and infrastructure that's supported by strategy. And so the 3 legs become like this. But the nice thing with the VEP program is if we all agree on this, then I can come up with templates for it that you don't have to pay for. So this becomes service. Oh man, that's awful. Risk. Infrastructure becomes your 3-legged stool. And I have some cute illustration that we could throw up there and your clients go, oh my gosh, that's great. That really means a lot to us to really understand why and how we're supporting our business. So that's one of the main things I wanted to talk about today. I have one other thing I need to talk about, but I'm happy to get feedback. I know, Bob, you've got things to say, but you're on mute. And Chris, you've got things to say, but you're on mute and I cannot see the rest of the group.
Chris, you just went unmuted. You got something? Oh, maybe. Well, I'll chime in here. You know, I've realized how poor a salesman I am. I've tried that role and I don't do well at it, but I have worked with some really good sales professionals, and I can, you know, kind of look in awe and be impressed at some of the things they do. And I thought one of the most, you know, practical things I've seen was a heat map. Worked with a sales director, and he went through and he developed a heat map. You know, these are all the things that we were offering, and it was products and solutions and services, and it was a great list. And then he would sit down with his individual account managers every week, and they would bring up clients and they would go over this heat map, and, you know, he'd ask questions. Well, why aren't you talking to them about, you know, the new Cisco UCS product that's out? We were a big Cisco shop. So, you know, a lot of the stuff on that heat map was Cisco related. But whatever it was, we would go through these different, you know, options, and they would try to, you know, essentially come up with talking points and priorities that they need to discuss with the clients. The challenges was there was, you know, outside of that spreadsheet and outside of that one-on-one session, there was little means to measure, to grade, and for ongoing management of that process. But at the core, it's still valuable. We need to have a standard of services that we're offering, a standard, you know, component of things, and we need to figure out a way to manage them across all of our environments. And I think breaking this down into these categories helps us get more tactical and practical in managing these things. And then once we get that part accomplished, then we can roll that up into bigger scores. And so we can look across all of our organizations, and we can see where we're at. We can see where one particular client may be lacking, where, you know, we need to focus our services. There's another, you know, just purely, absolutely purely business back end here. You know, there's Cisco VIP dollars. Some of you might be familiar with that. I am. I know there's other programs I'm not really familiar with, but I know HP has something similar to it. There's all these back end programs. Well, maybe they come out and they have just a sweet offering, you know, with your prime vendor for a quarter or a year or whatever. And if you could quickly capitalize on that, it would show up in some really good numbers to your bottom line. Well, if you already had this sort of assessment of all your client base is up and running, then you could see quickly, hey, if we go into our clients, you know, that are all at 40% or below in the infrastructure or the risk or something, then we can easily position this product. Basically, you find all the low-hanging fruit really fast and be able to capitalize on revenue for your organization. So there's a lot of value in categorizing and standardizing on these services. And I think we can apply it in several different methods and break it down several different ways. So we want to tackle from all the angles. So again, we're really definitely looking for feedback from you guys, more information about this, because I think we've really hit on something here that can help you guys scale and grow your businesses.
Can you guys hear me now?
There you are.
Man.
All right, cool. So I'm in the car driving, so I'll try to mute myself afterwards. But one of the thoughts that, I mean, I like what you've mapped out there, Adam, but one of the challenges I've always faced in this industry, which is no different than any other industry, is that we end up looking the same. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of the thing that I believe to be special to our organization, is that we do things just slightly different, not necessarily better or worse, but different than the other MSPs. And so, like, I appreciate the, hey, let us build it together, and that way you guys can have it all, but that means that we're all sort of doing the same thing. Now, I know we're all in different geographical areas, so there's probably no overlap, but that's the thought that occurs to me when we talk about standardizing it from your level.
Yeah, the trick here is that I just Googled to see if I can get some more accurate numbers. looks like, or there's around 20,000 MSPs in North America. And that is a number you need to remember in your head. If we get 20,000, how are you differentiating yourself? And I think that's the importance of what you just said, Chris, is what is different about you than everybody else? And the thing I'm trying to focus on is the VEP community members. We are a fraction, a very small fraction of these people out there. That's 20,000 MSPs that are doing break fix at the very basic minimum. How many of them are actually doing something like this where they're scoring and categorizing what they're doing and showing their clients strategic delivery? Now, I know for a fact that I'm that Virtual C is one of the only people teaching this stuff out there, if not the only company teaching this stuff. So I know that by being a member of this VEP community, you are in a very exclusive group. And so that's why I want to get your guys' feedback on what it is that we can measure ourselves and distinguish ourselves from the rest of the community. And that's just North America. And a lot of you guys that are in this group are in Australia, you're in the UK, you're in Canada, you're in North America, you're in the United States. And so the larger community worldwide, I don't know how big that is right now. I have no idea. But what we want to be able to do is distinguish ourselves in this group from the rest of the world. And we want to show that, look, you can get your computer's break fix, but if you work with us, with a VEP or with an MSP 2.0 or whatever you want to call yourself, you're going to get scored, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable in these areas so that you are having a better experience. And so that's where I don't want us to be generic. I don't want us to be just another MSP out there. I want us to be distinct. And then if you are a great MSP, it's going to show, because you're going to show them that you have this maturity. So if a crappy MSP comes in and tries to measure themselves by these 4 pillars, they're going to look pretty crappy. But if a great MSP, like you may focus on risk in your MSP, that's great. That's fantastic. You may focus on strategy like Skip and I do. That's great. That's what's unique. That's a unique proposition to your company. But you're still measuring yourselves on these 4 categories. And the advantage to having the 4 categories is that you have a template to start with. But then as you mature in your VCIO program, maybe you add a 5th category, or maybe you change the name to one of these categories, and it becomes something distinct to you. The important place is you now have a place to start. So for those of you out there trying to build your VCIO program from scratch, if you apply this, and even if 100 other MSPs were applying this, you're going to shine because you kick ass at what you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, one of the things that we're constantly trying to support you guys on is the ability to differentiate yourself. The MSP business model is very well established. If you think about your sales engagements that you have today versus the sales engagements you had 10 years ago. How many times 10 years ago did you have to explain what an MSP is? Talk through this whole model of, hey, you're going to pay me a flat rate per month, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to support your network in this particular area or something. That busting out of that hourly break fix model into proactive and flat rate billing was a shift for the marketplace. So, but today, 2019, we don't have those conversations nearly as often. I mean, most of our clients have already been exposed to this idea of an MSP, and that's good. It just means the MSP's community is becoming very commoditized. So what we're doing today, we're going to see shrinking margins and more difficult ways to differentiate ourselves if we're just trying to be better than everyone else doing the exact same thing. We need a key differentiator to separate us, to get us into those higher margins and tie us more tightly and, embed our more hooks into our clients. And I think showing this focus on strategy, service, risk, and infrastructure is a key way to do that. For me, I'm really highlighting the strategy section because I don't think many MSPs even touch this area. So not only one can we do this, but we can measure and manage it in such a complete fashion that when, a competitor comes in and goes, hey, I can do that, for, whatever dollars less than, if you count heads or if you're counting PCs or whatever, there's some trivial amount, your customers are going to be going, okay, well, that's okay, but how are you going to lead our strategy sessions? And if you ever get your clients to ask a competitor, how are you going to lead our strategy sessions? Just my experience right now, you're going to leave the competitor stumbling, looking for words. And it's going to be clear that they don't operate in the same league that you do. And your clients are going to really appreciate that and become very dependent upon you. That's kind of where we want to be.
So
yeah, Skip,
go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, Skip, you hit some of the things. Obviously, Adam, at least to you and I, these four actual pillars are what we've talked about as recently as yesterday. And to Chris's point, I see where he's coming from with the concern about everybody doing things similarly. I would posit that the industry is that way already. Most of us are in certain ways. The technology stack and saying that we think this product's the best and aligning that, we're all doing that. The services piece from a help desk standpoint, it's on that commodity lip already. I don't think most people would argue that. So it's really those other pillars that are available where you can really make your offering unique. And strategy is such a broad term, but it's near and dear to my heart, and it's critical. And exactly what Skip said, if you have a customer that's getting knocked on his door, and they are, and they're saying, well, how are you going to lead my strategy sessions? And you've got a good process built around this, and which is going to help with scalability, which is always our big concern. You're going to be able to take the marketplace. Everybody walks in and says, I do strategy, but when the rubber comes to the road, and why we've actually started working with BCIO, with the virtual C guys, is there's so many things out there, but most of the stuff you see and most of the stuff that's delivered always goes back to, well, we got to replace a server. We got to do this with your firewall, or we got to do this security thing for you. Here, know before. Here's a program for that. And it's all salesy, which is good, but there isn't really true strategy. And you're not getting sticky enough if you're not getting into that strategy mode. I hate the stool, but it makes sense. I would love a better graphic. And it really comes down to being an elevator pitch. Skip, you say you're not a good salesman, but you are, because you can talk the business. So we all experience that. We all know how that is. Having something that is that 15-second elevator pitch that says, our MSP focuses here and we lead with strategy because it really dictates how these other things happen. And I'll use our favorite word, Adam. I really want to align your business needs to the technology that you're working with. So.
The other distinct advantage to having the four pillars here is you can say, hey, this is an industry standard. So you can walk in top of the funnel to a prospective client and be like, hey, can we just have like 5 minutes of your time? And you just talk about, hey, let's see how your existing MSP is doing. I don't know how they're doing. They could be doing fine, but let's at least do this and do a heat map of how they're doing. And the answer to the question to go, man, you know what? They really aren't doing much for us on strategy. They say they're doing virtual C, they say they're doing virtual BCIO tasks, but according to this little questionnaire we just filled out, they're not doing annual strategy. They're not following up with QBRs. They haven't done a project discovery session with us or a SWOT strategy session. And you show them the gaps. Like, if you work with us, we're going to cover all this stuff for you. Now, you can do this already with a technology stack, but I'm going to guarantee you that your clients don't care when it comes to technology stack. They just know their computers are working, and that's good enough for them. But if you show them like a 4 pillars or a 3-legged stool or something like that, like, this is a MSP measurement tool. You're going to shine the light on those bad MSPs that are out there that are just doing break fix. And you're going to say, look, if you work with us, think about it. This is what you get instead. You get comprehensive service, and you get somebody who's in your corner, and you're able to like pitch that human emotion, that connective thing where you're like, look, you can have a break fix guy, and that's fine. They're cheap. Or you can have somebody who's going to take your business to the next level, and here's how. And that is a 20-minute conversation.
Yeah.
So that your sales guys, any sales guy can have that conversation. They just go down the checklist and ask the questions. And at the end, they've got this 4 pillars. You're now measured. And then when you have the onboarding session with that client, now that they realize what they're missing, they're going to go, man, this is where we're going to be after a year. I didn't realize how bad we had it. Or they're going to take this 4 pillars thing that you did on your pre-sales questionnaire, and they're going to take it back to their existing MSP, and they're going to go, why are we only scoring 20% on this? And now you've got an interesting question, because their MSP doesn't know how to do this stuff. They're like, oh, well, that's just a crappy report. They're going to come up with like 30 excuses, and a smart business is going to see right through those veiled excuses.
Yep. I was hearing about one of those just last week. You know, they were one of our clients. Adam was brought in to audit another company, which included, you know, by way of just auditing IT, auditing this other IT company's managed services. And yeah, they were extremely defensive in the whole process, just because it was clear that they had huge gaps in what they were doing. And so, you know, you don't have to go in and bash anybody. You don't have to talk bad about them. You know, there's not really a lot of sales in it. You just go in, and if you get that opportunity to have that quick conversation and show this overhead of, hey, these are the things that, you know, a company needs to be focusing on. We happen to do it. We think everyone needs to do this. It's kind of an industry standard. And they look at it and see, yeah, my MSP doesn't do any of this, or, you know,
Yeah.
they fall flat on their face. There's nothing else to say. It just becomes clear as day.
So flipping that on its head, let me ask the question. If a competitor came into one of your existing clients today and they audited you, how would you feel? So there's 2 sides to this coin. But both sides are accountability. Are your competitors going to hold you accountable, or are you going to hold yourself accountable? And that's why the 4 pillars works, if we can just define what these 4 pillars are. And I feel like we're going to be taking everything to the next level if we do that.
I just add the other unintended consequences. I kind of touched on it before, is that, and you've mentioned it, is scalability. So the other key that we've been trying to build is we have a team of people that are servicing our accounts on this. You've got your TAM, you've got your DCIO, even though we hate that term, and you've got an account manager. And they each have certain roles and responsibilities that trickle down under these 4 pillars. That's great for somebody who's experienced and comes in and has that knowledge. We can't afford a bunch of those guys. We need sharp guys that we can give them a playbook and say, okay, here, go forward. Now that we have scoring for the customers, their customers that they're covering, we're also able to see where they're doing well. If they're not doing a lot of strategy stuff and they're stuck in doing infrastructure discussions all the time, and I'm just going to work on flipping this firewall, and I'm not really talking about your risk because it's not a comfort zone, you've now just identified an opportunity for coaching for them, or, you know, start walking them down to the front door or the back door. I think that's a big value that we've seen internally when I talk with my senior team on this too as well.
Yeah, nobody's going to build a business and scale hiring unicorns. That's become a common term for us. We go through this, and again, yeah, Adam and I both, you know, have a lot of things about that VCIO title. It's, you know, it's hard to live up to whatever that's supposed to be.
Yeah, this is tier 5 service. What I refer to as tier 5 employees.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have tier 1 employees who, if you give them a procedure, they'll follow it. They know to go A, B, C, D. Tier 2 employees go, okay, I can do A, B, C. Oh, wait, there's a hiccup. Okay, I just need to figure out what to do next. I can kind of adjust this. Okay, we should just skip to E. You know, tier 3 employees go, which alphabet should I use? Should it be Russian? Should it be English? They're very smart people. Tier 4 says, when should I use the alphabet? At what point do we decide which alphabet to run? You know, they're planning things out. They're thinking things through. Tier 5 is just going, okay, should we speak or not? Should we create a new language to define this? Tier 5 people are your CEOs. They're the ones creating new items. They're your visionaries. They're the ones that are just going to make stuff up. There's no process for doing Tier 5 work. And that's what this is. What we can do is we can hold ourselves accountable to a level of service. Like, hey, you know what? Next year, what if, I was just talking to Skip about quantum computing just had a breakthrough this last like week and a half. What if it turns out quantum computing is really cheap to adopt? Okay, who at your company is going to decide whether or not you want to pitch quantum computing to your clients? That's a Tier 5 decision. That's somebody trying to figure out, like, do we change our technology portfolio to help our clients achieve their dreams? They're asking those high-level questions so that they can hand it down to a Tier 4 and a Tier 3 saying, okay, here's the called play. You need to run it. And they figure out how to implement it with the clients. Tier 5, there is no process to this. There's just accountability. Is the client happy or not? Is the client successful or not? And that's where we want to get. And that's about all I had to say on that. I really want people's feedback over the next week. I really, really want you guys to email me. I know a lot of people are just going to watch this video later because they're gone. But send me an email. If you think that there's a better way to pitch the 4 pillars, let me know. If there's a better set of pillars, you know, maybe if you like a recommendation or whatnot. But I think by next Thursday, I'm gonna show you what this looks like in a demo report. I'm gonna create a version 3.1 or 3.2, depending on how frisky I get, to show you what this could look like if we adopt this as a community. This is our decision. You're part of the VEP community now. This is our decision. Skip and I are just going to create for you, and we're going to help guide this process. And we are going to become the de facto MSPs in the nation or in your area. So I'm going to let everybody have 23 minutes left back to their day. And if you have anything else, feel free to email me, call me, and we'll set this video up on the Wistia channel. I want to add one last plug. If you are not subscribed to the Wistia channel with all the videos and everything, get subscribed to that. That's where you're going to see whether you missed an operational meeting or a tip and a trick from Skip and I. It's going to get published to that channel so you can watch it later. We're all busy. We're going to miss sessions. You can then digest it in the car as you go home, or you can listen to it in the morning over your cup of coffee. But get subscribed to that channel so that we can make sure we're reaching out to you and getting your feedback. In the meantime, we'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks, guys.